Come on up.
Whoa.
Hello, everyone.
All right, now get back under the table.
Little too close. Hold on, a little too close. Max, tonight we're going to talk about
What?
ancient China.
China.
Is that fun?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. I'm glad you're here with us.
Get back down in the dungeon.
It's so cute. He got a little blanket and put it underneath the table and then like extended it out so I could put my toes on the soft blanket. Hi, and welcome back to the Natalie Noyes podcast. Last time on History for All to Understand, Greg and I gave an overview on ancient history, talking about cultures like Mesopotamia, Rome, Egypt, Greece, and India. We talked briefly about China, but tonight we're going to dive in a little bit deeper.
Let's get into China. Who can't get into China?
We were in the car and you started breaking down China for me, and I was like, this is really fascinating. I didn't know any of this, and so I'm excited to talk about that tonight. What was ancient China and what made it interesting?
As a former history teacher and history major in college, there's so many people out there that know so much more about China than I do. I think China is awesome, but there's so much. It's almost like, when you took US history in 8th grade, that was the only history that you took. You spent an entire year studying just US history. And then again in 11th grade, just US history. And of course, that's our country, so we have students, and actually 5th grade too. But my point is, our country is relatively young, right? 1776 until we're about to have the 250th year anniversary. That's not very long in the grand scheme of things historically. So China, when you study China, we're talking thousands of years, and a country that's even bigger than the United States. Many different people groups that have come together. It's just, there's so much to unpack. I don't even know the half of it. I know quite a bit about it, probably more than the average person, but there's so much more that I don't know. So I'll do my best. That's my disclaimer. So you asked, what makes it interesting? I think that it is a culture that lasted so long there was change in leadership, I suppose, but it still is China. We look at all the past dynasties and we say that was a continuation of one culture, even though that's a little bit misleading because there was lots of different cultures. It's too big for it not to be the case that there are different cultures within what we now call China. But it's also a place that was isolated for thousands of years. That's pretty wild to think about. When you study any country in Europe, like Germany or Italy or Spain, those countries all interacted with each other and went to war with each other a lot. And there was definitely war in China, but China was isolated from much of the outside world because of geographic features, right? We talked about this a little bit last time. Gobi Desert in the north, Himalayas in the southwest, ocean all along the east. It's just hard to get to China if you're an outsider. Like if you're in Japan, you gotta cross a sea to get over there. If you're in India, you gotta cross the Himalayas to get over there. Europeans didn't really start coming over regularly until the Middle Ages, right? With the Silk Road and Marco Polo and all that stuff. So China is, and then all the inventions. There's just so much to talk about. It's fascinating. Where do you want to start?
You mentioned China as a dynastic period. Who ruled China and how?
So China was ruled by a series of dynasties. And some people are really big on knowing the names of the dynasties. I don't know them terribly well. The very first one is almost like a mythical dynasty. It's similar to, we'll talk about Rome next time, but how Rome was founded mythically by Romulus and Remus that were raised by a wolf or something like that. Similarly, China's first dynasty, there's not a lot of archaeological evidence that it really existed. It's almost like an influential idea or something. Maybe there was. But the first dynasty was, a few hundred years after that, but we're talking like a couple thousand years BC, right? It's like 1600 BC or something like that, when there's first archaeological evidence of these dynasties. Who ruled? The dynasties did, but who ruled the dynasties? Sometimes it was families, sometimes it was an emperor. Actually, the first several of these dynasties, it wasn't what we would call an emperor that united all of China or all of known China at the time. if you were to draw a map of any of those dynasties at any given time, comparing it to today's map of China, it's going to look different, probably smaller. Those early dynasties were more like kings that ruled. So, and there were different kingdoms that maybe would be at war with each other at different times. So when we first started referring to an emperor, it would have been when they united several kingdoms together, and it was more an empire, right? And imperial refers to, controlling your empire, not just your country.
And what are, when you think about dynasties, you're saying sometimes it was a family, like, what did that dynamic look like? Just one family holding office or leadership for a long, long time?
Yeah, again, there's people that probably are experts at this and know some of the amazing stories when it comes to that kind of stuff. I'm sure it's a lot like a daytime soap opera sometimes, where there's people that turn on each other, or different people fall out of style, or they're not supported anymore, and so someone else takes over. I'm sure there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about that, but it does remind me, and maybe we could talk about this separately, but most of these dynasties, especially say it by the 200s BC, so 2200 years ago, most of them follow Confucius and his wisdom, his advice. So they were Confucianist in that way, which isn't not quite like a religion, but more like a philosophy, like a worldview of how to order your life and how to order your government.
I think for you, obviously, as a historian teaching history, these numbers make a lot of sense to you, but sometimes for me, I get kind of lost in
so
placement.
Here's one example. This is the Han Dynasty. But that's hardly half of modern China. So like all the way over to Tibet, that was untouched by these dynasties. They weren't really over there. This is more over here where modern day Beijing is, and Shanghai along the coast. There's a lot of great timelines you can look at. This one's fun because you can see it vertically. So the oldest ones are on top, going down to the present day. This is that mythical dynasty that may or may not have existed, the Xia dynasty. Then you have the Shang, the Zhou, and this is where you have the first actual emperors, right? The Han dynasty is very well known because there was a lot of great inventions and things happening during the Han dynasty. But you can see it goes all the way down to 1912. So that was just over 100 years ago. That's when China became the Republic of China, not the People's Republic of China, because that's the communist takeover a few decades after that. But first it was the Republic of China.
Yeah.
That was the end of the dynasties.
So let's discuss everyday life in China. What did it look like?
So I think for the vast majority of those living under any given dynasty, you were probably a farmer. There's a quote, I'm going to get it a little bit wrong, but it's something like, people used to say this like many years ago, that 1 in 7 people on the planet is a Chinese peasant. Like even today, and that was the case through most of China's history. Most people were farming, right? You've seen some of these pictures of like rice fields and things like that. But there's plenty of rivers in China, huge rivers, some of the largest rivers on earth. So there's plenty of fresh water to irrigate and farm and feed a population to avoid famine and things like that. I'm gonna start with the rice terrace. And you see these in other places too, like in the Philippines and Indonesia. People will use not necessarily flat ground to grow as a farm, right? But they'll farm on hillsides because they'll make these terraces, and on each level they have room to grow, whether it's rice or whatever.
Really pretty.
Yeah. So this map shows some of the major rivers that are going through China. So you can see all on the rivers is where all these red dots are on this particular map.
Hey Max, come here, look at this. Come here, look at this. Look at these rivers in China.
Whoa.
Yes.
So the Yangtze and the Yellow River are two of the biggest.
Okay, so what did the women do?
What the women did is they got down to business.
Let's get down to business.
To defeat the Huns. That's what the women did. No, I think like most ancient cultures, it was a male-dominated society. Were a lot of women in leadership. I'm sure there were some exceptions.
So, I mean, that movie portrays her getting ready to be married off to somebody, right, coming from a family, and she decides to go to
right, working with a matchmaker, and which there's a lot of Confucianism and references to Confucian thought in that movie. So when we get to Confucianism, we can talk about that.
Culturally, is it, I mean, it's Disney, but is it culturally relevant, traditionally speaking?
So I've never been to China, and again, there are better experts out there. But from what I know, you can definitely learn a lot about China from watching Mulan or watching Kung Fu Panda,
Movies, yeah.
right? Or watching Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Just like I'm sure people that aren't from America could learn a lot from watching like Mickey Mouse or something, you know, like you could definitely, you still learn about the culture. You know, it's Disney, so
Yeah.
it's probably not historically accurate or anything like that. In fact, in Mulan, it was the Huns, right, that were invading, and really the invaders were the Mongols, which sometimes those words are used interchangeably, the Huns and Mongols, but the Huns were a barbarian invader of Europe during the Roman times. So anyway,
Interesting. So let's talk about some of China's inventions
oh yeah.
and which ones of those were impactful.
So Kung Fu Panda, in all seriousness, features, I counted them one time, like 20 Chinese inventions in the movie. If you know what some of the major inventions are, you got the list in front of you, watch the movie, you go, oh yeah, that's one. Like a wheelbarrow, cannons, fireworks, gunpowder.
Fireworks came from China.
They still do.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. But I want to show you a picture. This is one of China's more famous inventions. What does that look like to you?
Ancient books, tablets with writing on them.
Yeah, that's not wrong. Does it look like a giant stamp?
Potentially.
Yeah, so that's basically what this is in function, but this is what they call woodblock printing.
Like a press.
Yeah, well, yeah. So the idea is, like let's say you had some Confucian text and you wanted to provide that to people. We just totally skipped over. They invented paper too. See, where I'm going with this, it doesn't even make sense unless you know that they also invented paper. So yeah, the Chinese were the first to invent paper and the first to invent paper money. Right? The Chinese translation, I don't speak Chinese, but my understanding is it almost means flying money, right? Paper money. So it was like a bill or a note that would represent a value, pretty similar to what we use today for currencies around the world. So China invented paper money. Let's talk this woodblock here. So if you wanted to give someone else a copy of Confucian text, you could scribe it by hand and make a copy of it, take a long time. Or if you're able to carve in the wood, then all you have to do is lay some ink on it, slap a paper on it, and you can make copies a lot faster once you make that initial piece. Now, whenever I would go over this with students, it's like 7th graders, they would really quickly think like, oh, what if you mess up? Like, what if you carve how long does that take to carve? It takes a long time probably to carve that. What if you mess like one piece up, or one of the symbols, one of the letters? Like, so it wasn't too long that the Chinese transitioned from woodblock printing to movable print. So this picture you're looking at, it's the same idea, but you can interchange the pieces, right? And you can see the progression in inventions, where this would lead eventually to something like a typewriter, right? Like in Europe, or a printing press, I suppose, before that, right? The printing press was not invented until the mid 1400s, I think. 1453, by Gutenberg in Germany. So this is thousands of years before that.
How inventive.
For real.
How inventive. Like, a part of me wonders if they are like in isolation, like the being in isolation leads to more inventions and more time to think and make things.
I've thought about that too, because there's definitely other cultures out there that have been isolated and did not thrive the way China did.
Okay.
Right? So yeah, why is that? There must be other things at play that allowed China to be so inventive, right? And they invented many other things. Did you know they invented the fork? In America, sometimes we think, oh, China, their utensil of choice is chopsticks or something, and it can be, but the fork was invented in China as well.
I can't help but think of that garden that we go to, that we like, where they have the Huntington.
Right.
Yeah.
What do they have?
They have a little area with the bonsai trees. You see some of the ancient type
architecture.
Yeah. And then they do the design on the design that looks kind of like the rice fields, like on the sand. Very cool. What were some challenges? Like, you talked about dynasties rose up, some of them fell. What led to dynasties falling?
Again, there's so many dynasties, and I'm sure there's a great story for everyone that I'm not as familiar with. But a lot of times it would be rebellion, it would be war with a rival group that was taking over when one group fell out of favor. Famously, the Mongols did invade China and establish their own dynasty that was led by Kublai Khan for a while. That was Genghis Khan's grandson. So all kinds of reasons that there would be a shift in power. So if you go back to the timeline, to me it's remarkable that many of these dynasties lasted longer than the United States has been around. So 250 years, right? So the Shang dynasty lasted over 500 years. The Zhou dynasty looks like 350 years or so, maybe 300 years. The Han dynasty, about 400 years. The Zhou dynasty, 700 years. The Han dynasty, 400 years. And some of these more recent dynasties in the Middle Ages lasted like 300 years, 300 years. That's a long time. There wasn't a great deal of power changes, if you think about it. I mean, it was hundreds of years between power changes oftentimes. Whereas like in the Roman Empire, there were periods of time when emperors were being assassinated left and right. You have various emperors in charge in the same year. So a lot of stability, relatively speaking.
Talking philosophy a little bit and culture, how it influences culture, governance, and the leadership in this country.
Yeah, we talked about Confucianism. So there's really like the big three that all came about around the same time. Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism. All completely different, all coming around the 500s BC, right? So 2,500 years ago. Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism all coming around 500 BC. So on our timeline that we've referenced in the past, somewhere right in the middle of this ancient age. So let's first go with Buddhism. It didn't start in China, it started in India, and it spread to China. It spread a lot of places, actually. It spread to Korea, it spread to Japan, but it did take off in parts of China. And Buddhism, of course, is a religion founded by Siddhartha Gautama. He's the Buddha, right, the enlightened one. And in a nutshell, that philosophy says that you need to follow the Eightfold Path. You have to follow the Four Noble Truths. And it goes something like this. The first truth is to acknowledge that existence is suffering. It's because the Buddha was aware of suffering. So he says the first truth is to acknowledge that existence is suffering. Second is to acknowledge that the suffering is caused by desire. The third truth is that if you end suffering, you'll end desire. And the fourth truth is that you can do that by following the Eightfold Path, which is, I'm going to forget all of them, but it's like right mind, right attitude, right? It's like eight things. So that's that philosophy in a nutshell. And it was popular in China. If you think about it, if you're a peasant and someone says existence is suffering, you might relate to that right away and go, you're darn right it is. So I like this philosophy. What next? Oh, I can just stop wanting things and then, So there you go. Right view, right resolve, right mindfulness, right action, right speech. So that's the Eightfold Path.
Right livelihood, right concentration, right thought.
Yeah. But it starts with the premise that existence is suffering. So you can see how that would be popular if there's a population that is suffering. So the second philosophy is Taoism.
Sorry, just to recap or to backtrack a little bit. Buddhism came from India to China, and then so China was mainly made up of 3 different religions. Buddhism, Confucianism.
Well, before those 3, there was there was like ancestor worship. There was, I guess you'd lump it in as paganism, right? Deification of the dead. Generally like just pagan worldviews.
Okay.
But then I'm saying these are the big 3 that come along and influence China. So
Got it.
The second one is Taoism. So the founder of Taoism is Lao Tzu. And in a nutshell, it is about the life force around us that is always seeking to be in balance. So the yin and the yang represents that well.
It's showing my visuals.
So the yin and the yang, right, represents light and dark, male and female, good and evil, like all the things that need to be in balance in nature. So, but it presumes that there is a life force that they call the qi, right, or the way. That's the second one. And the third one is Confucianism. Founder is Confucius. All coming around the same time. Who was the founder of Taoism? Lao Tzu.
And who was that?
His name should be on there.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
And this was the writing that they read for Taoism?
Yeah, there were some Taoist texts, yeah.
Okay.
Confucianism was the most widespread, and I suppose a lot of people in China could, ascribe to Confucianism, but also be Taoist or also be Buddhist, because Confucianism was more about a worldview of how to behave, right? And a lot of it was about valuing community over the individual. So the opposite of what has come out of the West, right? In the West, it's all about the individual over the community. China has always been, because of Confucian influence, about the community. You're not going to go elope and find love in China nearly as often as you would see like in modern America or something like that, because that dishonors your family, right? You're called to honor your family, to honor your parents. And in the same way, you as a subject of the ruling emperor, you're called to honor the emperor and to be in right relationship with the emperor. And likewise, the emperor needs to be in right relationship with those that he rules. So in a way, Confucius, so you know of Machiavelli, right? So the Italian, you call him the father of political science, the one who said, he wrote The Prince. It was like a guidebook for how to rule, right? This is during the Renaissance. And in it,
who was he?
He's the one that said it's better to be feared than loved.
Yes.
Or that, yeah. He said it's good to be both. If you can be loved and feared, that's great, but definitely feared. Make sure you're feared, right? Because then people won't take advantage of you, and then you're not going to get pushed over. Like he talks all about it in his book. Confucius is like the Machiavelli of the East, but his philosophy was the opposite. It wasn't to be feared, it was to be loved, right? He said, you need to be of high moral character as a ruler, right? And that's how you're in right relationship with your subjects. If you are corrupt, then you got to come into you. Like then you're not meant to lead. Same thing with the family, right? If you're, as a parent, you need to be in right relationship with your kids, and you need to be moral and upright. So you can definitely see that today. So we live in California. There's a multiplicity of cultures in California, but definitely those that we know that are Chinese families and Chinese students, do really well. They do really well. And I think a big part of that is there is still an emphasis on honoring your family, right? You're going to make respectable choices. You're going to be prudential and do the right thing, right? And you see that even today. So those are the big three: Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism. You've seen Kung Fu Panda. Gotta go here.
Yeah.
So when I used to teach 7th grade history, I would show the first Kung Fu Panda, and I would help the students identify. It was something like 15 references to each of those 3 philosophies in the movie. That was kind of fun.
You had a whole movie guide with Kung Fu Panda that you would show to your students. What was that movie guide about? Like what was it? Like finding elements? You talked about inventions, but what's that?
It was kind of a cross-curricular thing. So there's the history of it that we just talked about, but then it was almost like a paragraph frame, an essay outline to write an essay about it. So the 3 body paragraphs were about each of the 3 philosophies, and the intro paragraph with the thesis statement was about that this movie portrays different Chinese philosophies, and they would cite evidence and things like that. So
I always like talking about the religion stuff real quick, so so that I understand the 3 religions that are predominantly in China. They don't intermix. Like you're one and you stick to one.
No, remember I was saying that Confucianism is more worldview.
So I'm saying what do you say a religion is though? That's what I'm saying. Like how much of it is culture and how much of it is this is identifying?
I mean throughout China's history that's going to ebb and flow and change, but I think that at any time someone could say they're influenced by each of those 3, or that they're primarily a Buddhist, but they believe in Confucian principles in terms
because I've heard stuff like that.
Running the state.
Yeah, I've heard stuff like that. So that's why it's really interesting
or even the Tao, like all 3 are similar in that they don't make absolute statements about God or about a God. So it's whereas in Western culture, Western philosophy is founded on logic, and the first law of logic is the law of non-contradiction, right? That you can't have both A and non-A at the same time and in the same relationship. So if in Western culture someone says, "Oh, I'm a Christian and I believe in God and I believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and I also believe in Buddhism that there really is no God," right? Someone's going to go, "Whoa. That defies the law of logic. Like, so do you believe in God or do you not believe in God?" But in Eastern philosophy, that's not the focus. I'm not saying that they didn't apply logic or they weren't logical people, but that wasn't the focus. So you could have Confucian principles that guide your life, and you could also say that religiously you're Buddhist, but also you might take things from Taoism that help you, right, to be in balance. That reminds me, Kung Fu and Tai Chi, those both come from Taoism. And Buddhism too a little bit, but those martial arts forms are closely tied to those worldviews.
Yeah.
You're
very
beautiful.
Interesting. Very, very
You're beautiful.
interesting. Thank you.
You're very beautiful.
Very interesting. I don't know why, but I think often, you talked about the pagan roots, and we're talking about ancient, history, and I always want to bring it back somehow to Christianity. I may keep this in or I might take it out, I'm not sure, but where did yoga come from? Hindu? That's India?
Yeah, India.
Because you brought the art form of like martial arts, right? And so I just wonder, like, I know yoga, like you do, like it's worshiping other Hindu gods with some of the stances and the things that you do, and how modern, I know even churches that have yoga groups, and people have talked about yoga and how it's it can bring in like spiritual oppression and like demonic stuff into your life. And I remember a long time ago, like I had friends from church that were doing yoga, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And like I love stretching. I have a dance background, but I was convicted that I shouldn't do yoga. And then I just wonder how much, I'm not saying martial arts and like these movements are worshiping gods, and I don't know if they are, and someone that may be more well-versed would know. But it's just interesting to think about how ancient civilizations had things that they worship knowing they're not knowing. So I think especially as Christians, you know, you look at things like things that have pagan roots that you're not even aware of. And well, it's fascinating to like study world religions and think about different cultures and like why they do what they do, where they came from. There's really respectable things, but then there's also things that are like non-negotiables from like a Christian standpoint.
Yeah, so I mean, the yoga example is to me a little more cut and dry. That, you know, the yoga poses are postures toward Hindu gods, and as a Christian, you might say, I will not be doing that.
Yeah,
right?
If you're aware of it.
Right.
Yeah, when you're aware of it.
Whereas with these martial arts traditions,
yeah.
I don't think it's as cut and dry. I mean, we could Google it later, but I don't think that any of Tai Chi or Kung Fu moves or stances are direct, like worshiping of a god or something like that. I think it's more about life balance and about fitness.
Yeah,
that's the thing. A lot of like those two in particular, Tai Chi especially, it's not like it's this is the best like fighting style that you can beat someone up or something. I think it's more about fitness, right? It's about your strong core and things
strengthening
like that.
the core. Yeah. I think a lot of obviously being physical and doing things that are movement of body and good for body. Like I'm not even alluding and saying that. I'm just saying I'm curious. Like I might have to research and think about what that looks like. But I think.
Sorry, you know, I mean, we mentioned those two, Tai Chi and Kung Fu, but you know what culture nearby has even more like martial arts traditions is Japan. Like karate, sumo, and I almost said taiko, but that's the drumming. But they have there's a bunch more I'm forgetting. But the Japanese that was like a warrior culture. That's we talk about Japan another time.
Yeah.
Well, actually, as it relates to China, this is getting past ancient China though, and into like more Middle Ages. But China had a direct influence on Japan in all sorts of ways, from the language and the writing system to the Buddhism. Actually, Buddhism came through China and Korean visitors to Japan. Like a lot of Japanese culture has been influenced by China, and less so the other way around. Although I don't know if a lot of Japanese would admit that.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that when we start going into the next couple episodes. Yeah, really interesting. It's cool to see how impactful, you know, ancient civilizations were to modern times. So it'll be fun to get into the modern as well.
How did we get through all of this and not talk about the Great Wall? It's like the most famous part about China.
Tell me more. Tell me.
I mean, there's a lot of stories, but you know, I think the way that most kids in America learn is that the wall was built to keep the invaders out, and I think that was true. It's not that that's not true, but I also think it wasn't that one emperor one day decided to build the Great Wall and then they went about building the wall and it was like a big project, you know, and like here's the purpose, here's the mission statement. Like it was built and added onto over hundreds of years by different dynasties for different reasons. And I've even heard it said that at some points it was built to keep people in, not just to keep people out, right? And then I think there's some truth to this, but I think that sometimes they would throw people into the wall and like build it with people inside, like to either to punish them or because they were injured while they were working, and it was just easier just to bury them literally
into the concrete.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like it's like some people say the Great Wall is actually the world's longest tomb for that reason.
Grave site.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, it's pretty spectacular. It was, for a long time, it was the only man-made object you could see from space. Right. I don't think that's true anymore. I think you can see it. Can you see it?
Do you have a picture? Pull it up.
Let's check it out.
Yeah. I think what I find most fascinating, besides the inventions it's just the isolation and what can happen with people groups throughout time. Certainly the culture and how for many, many years you can keep a tradition going, and just what that looks like. And this is a perfect example of values, right?
Yeah. So check out this map. You can see it's not just one continuous wall from one spot to another, but there's different sections of the wall, and there's even like double sections of the wall.
So what are the entry points?
Well, I think that the idea was that there wasn't any entry points.
Right.
It was to, if you were the Mongols coming to invade and you hit a certain part of the wall, you might have to go hundreds of miles or thousands of miles any direction to get around it, so you're just not going to do it. Let's look at some pictures here. So some of the more famous and beautiful pictures are like these ones where, it's amongst the hills and the trees. It's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Which dynasty, which emperor, like when did they start? Is there historical
it was
reference?
the Noyes dynasty.
None of business.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of difference.
So we don't know.
Let me ask you a better question. Would you visit China?
Truly, I don't know that it's top. Like, I have my locations that I want to go to first. So there's some places I'd like to go to first, but hopefully relations with China can get better. But I'm not going there next year.
It's a very diplomatic answer. I said you won a trip. Are you going or not?
Let's win the trips to the places I want to see first, and then we can win that trip.
No, here's the trip. You won it. Are you taking it or not? It's free.
I'm going to sleep on it. Let me sleep on it.
That'll do it. What are we talking about next? We'll be back for the Roman Empire?
Yeah, so why don't you just summarize, the main points we went over?
So ancient China is really cool. It was a culture that was isolated for thousands of years from a lot of outside influence. So they were able to be a unique culture in and of itself, a very industrious culture, a lot of inventions that have trickled down to today, big inventions, gunpowder and cannons and paper money and woodblock printing and things that eventually led to printing press and printers and things like that. The Great Wall was built to keep people out. You could see that when a large culture group of people put their mind to something, they can do amazing things. And China is one of the, if not the longest continuous lasting culture that has survived to today. So what we know as modern China today, the map of China, has looked a little bit like that and smaller on the map, I suppose, for 3,000 years. That's pretty incredible.
Very cool, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie.
This is fun. I think so much more to talk about, especially as it pertains to modern times. So I'm looking forward to going over
modern China
production, how much of our imports have come from China, how many of our products, obviously on the business side of things,
like the stuff at the Dollar Tree.
Certainly stuff
or
at
the
Walmart.
Stuff in the iPhone.
Yeah.
Or the fireworks for the 4th of July.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun to get into the modern side of things with
TikTok.
China.
Tariffs.
All right, so there you have it. Greg Noyes has gone over some fun facts about China. In our next episode, we're going to work on how much fun it is to pretend like you're your wife and you have her talking points right in front of you. Can you stop? Okay, so next time we talk more about the Roman Empire, including its rise and fall. So I'm really looking forward to next time's
You know who
episode.
likes to talk about the Roman Empire? Every guy on the planet.
There we go. So.
You know who doesn't, but pretends like she does? Natalie.
Okay. I'm actually interested to see what's so fascinating about the Roman Empire. So I'll talk about it a little bit. All right. Thank you guys so much. See you next time.